Buenos días a todos. Si quieren tomar asiento, damos comienzo a la jornada de hoy. Hemos esperado media hora porque sabemos que hay gente registrada que está interesada en el tema y que estábamos esperando porque son caras conocidas y en ese caso pues sabemos que son fiables, que no se registran y luego no vienen. Ayer tuvimos una jornada muy interesante dedicada en gran parte al tema de audiolibro, que me parece que aportó bastante contenido para seguir reflexionando sobre el tema en cuanto a modelo de negocio aquí en México. Tuvimos una mesa sobre el libro infantil y bueno, varias otras que no les voy a contar ahora. Los que estuvieron ya lo saben y los otros pueden ver también lo que se habló en el canal de YouTube del Centro Cultural de España, donde pueden recapitular todo lo que se presentó ayer. Hoy nos vamos a dedicar por la mañana al tema de acceso abierto. Supongo que ya conocen más del tema, seguro que más que yo. Acceso abierto tradicionalmente ha sido un tema llevado por los editores académicos o por revistas científicas encargadas de servir de plataforma para que los resultados de investigaciones llegaran a los lectores a través de periodistas especializados. El sistema parecía funcionar, puesto que se conseguía el propósito de que los científicos publicaran, las editoriales facilitaran ganando dinero ese contenido y el público se enterara de los últimos avances y descubrimientos. En los últimos años ha aumentado la discusión en cuanto al sistema, indicando que las editoriales ganan dinero gracias al trabajo gratuito de científicos, ofreciendo las publicaciones bien en forma de suscripción o de pago por lectura sin retribuirles a los autores. Por otra parte, diversas instituciones financiadoras exigen la publicación en Open Access de aquellas investigaciones que han sido financiadas por ellas, es decir, cuando los fondos provienen de instituciones públicas financiadas por contribuyentes. Quiero darle la bienvenida a Sven Fundt, que ha trabajado como Senior Consultant de Desarrollo Corporativo en Bertelsmann del año 2000 al 2003 y fue jefe de puntos de ventas y actividades del Club Bertelsmann de 2003 a 2004. Después, hasta el 2008, fue gerente del Birkhäuser Verlag en Basilea y entre 2006 y 2008 director gerente del grupo Springer Wien New York en Viena. Fue también miembro de la directiva de Springer Science Business Media, hoy se llama Springer Nature, entre 2007 y 2008. Desde 2008 a 2015 fue director gerente de la editorial científico-técnica de Greuter en Berlín y en 2015 fundó la agencia consultora Full Stop, especializada en publicaciones académicas, así como en instituciones de ámbito educativo. Sven dirige e invierte en empresas como Sample of Science, Knowledge Unleashed o Inkit.com. Ahora nos hablará de cómo transmitir conocimiento y al mismo tiempo monetizar el contenido. Sven, welcome.
Thank you, Marifi, and good morning, everybody. I'm sorry I can't do this in English, in Spanish, I mean. In English I can. I can only do it in German as well, if you want. So you have two choices, but let's stick with English for today. It's my great pleasure to start this day, this morning rather, on open access by giving you a little bit of at least my view on open access. You can imagine that after 15 or 20 years of open access publishing, there are multiple views. And after this presentation, we will discuss that in more depth on the panel and then a little bit more practical in the workshop. Oops, okay. I would like to focus open access publishing not only on the publishing side, but also on whom we are doing this for, which is researchers, but also libraries, which play an important role in this triangle, and also, if you want, research funders. So if this works, do I have to switch it on somewhere? No. Let's do this. It's easier. So a little bit of an overview. Where did we start before open access really took off? That was more or less 20 years ago. What happened? What is open access all about? It has been all about, and is it all about right now? As the lady or the gentleman, if you want, so no need to debate, please. As the animal is getting older, what is changing in open access publishing? And is there a future, and hopefully is this future bright?
Sven, I think you need to use a microphone, otherwise they don't.
Good. So now, yeah, this is good. So you see that I have my hands full with technology. Good. To start with, publishing, academic publishing in 1989, the land of milk and honey, right? Especially for the large publishers, as you can see, a highly profitable business. They focused more and more on journal publishing because it was even easier to earn money in that field, and that was 2 years before I entered publishing. I can tell you that the fast pace of the industry consolidation was really a consequence that publishers really didn't know where to put the money that they earned if they didn't want to return it to their shareholders. There was very little incentive to innovate, and you can see that this guy here is just measuring the gold in his pile there. Digitization is around the corner. Elsevier started with digital publishing in 1996, for example, as the market leader for journal publishing. So very early signs there have been already. At that time, it is still relatively easy for publishers to control. There was no disruptive element in scholarly publishing coming from digitization at that time. Especially journals, as I said, developed into cash cows, so there were publishers that reduced more and more the book publishing side. You can imagine that that was focused on the humanities, the STM fields, while the humanities and social sciences still published in their majority in books. So here's already a split between the disciplines STM and HSS, humanities and social sciences, very early on. The book publishing starts to really lose importance for a lot of publishers. At that time, for example, Elsevier just published a few hundred books and several thousand academic journals in those years. So you can already see there that there is a change in the industry. The most important point, in 1998, publishers really didn't have a reason to change their business models. Everything went very well. There was growth, there was high profitability, they owned the assets or controlled them very much. So for the big guys, and they, as you know, always shape our view of the industry, there was no real reason to change. Except for a political movement, which is called the Journal Crisis of the 1990s. The major funding institutions in the Northern Hemisphere, at least, Max Planck, the Wellcome Trust, the National Institutes of Health in North America, start to question why there should always be a price increase of 5 to 7%, even though the output and the quality of the product remained the same. It is very clear that they want to see a change in the journal regime in publishing. There have been several meetings in trying to reformulate basically academic publishing, and you can see here the Budapest Initiative by the Soros Foundation very early on, the Bethesda Statement and the Berlin Declaration all hinted at let's break the monopoly, or oligopoly rather, of the large publishers. So if you are not working for Wiley, Elsevier, Springer, or Taylor & Francis, they never meant you, but they always talked about publishing, which is, I think, one of the major problems in the industry today, that we are being judged by the big guys, even though the market dynamics behind our type of publishing are completely different. Most of the initiatives were directed against the big publishers, and frankly, for the next 15 years, 10 years, they wouldn't care, because they were just in a dominant position still. They would play a little bit with open choice, as we did it at Springer, for example, but there was not really an incentive to dramatically change the industry. Springer was the first innovator, the innovative company in 2004, with a commercial response to this political quest to change the field. And there were also many small initiatives coming up. And this is important for later on, because this now really changes the industry. Suddenly, pioneers like Biomed Central, which is, funny or not, now part of Springer Nature, have started very early on to innovate and just launch open access only journals. There were Hindavi, Frontiers later on. So there's a whole group of publishers who move into that field. It is important, I think, to know that open access in the beginning really was a political initiative and not so much an economic one, which really made it difficult for the first years to get a kind of rational common ground to really discuss between publishers, funders, researchers, and librarians. And researchers were very much out of the game, because this was about money, and researchers don't care about money as long as they can publish their article or their book in a place where the recognition, the discoverability, the impact is as high as possible. So this was a very kind of isolated debate between a few geeks in academic publishing and on the library side. And especially in Mexico, but also coming from Germany, I'm a little bit careful with the term movement. However, the open access guys always call themselves a movement, so this is not referring to German history or American presidents right now. It is just referring to a group of people who want something comparable. The problem was that there were many shortcomings, as with many disruptive processes very early on in open access publishing. So, as I said, there was very weak support in the beginning from researchers in just a few disciplines. So there was life sciences, for example, that was high energy physics, few fields like that, but I have had a lot of discussions at that time with people in the humanities and social sciences, with historians, political scientists and so on, and they all thought, you know, this is crazy stuff, this is all too complicated, this is negatively impacting our publisher, why would we do that? So not having their support was for the first 5 or 7 years really an issue for the open access movement. Libraries, as I said, they were all very engaged in these discussions. Libraries and librarians, as the major keepers of funding within academic publishing, were reluctant to shift businesses and to shift budgets, which is a problem, right? You talk about something, but you don't put your money what you want to achieve. That has been a problem in the past, and I would say that it still is a problem, because librarians, for different reasons, find it extremely hard to change their funding structure and to adapt to new ways of spending the money. Elsevier is the major player in the field, especially in the journal publishing field, with the top journals, with the top tools, simply blocked open access in the beginning with the argument, this will never work. Well, if you don't participate as the market leader, it is difficult. You know that Elsevier has changed their policies now, but it has been a very heated debate on their end as well. And books, and I can't emphasize that enough, books have been completely left out in that debate. Also in the humanities and social sciences, but also in STM. Even now, if you go to conferences, there is a conference every second year, I believe in Berlin, OA 2020, the European initiative. Everybody says in the opening statements, we are talking about open access for all products. This is really important to discuss it as a whole, but let's focus on journals first of all. And that's what they then do for the next 2 or 3 days. So books are being left out, and as I assume that most of you are in book publishing with a significant part of what you do, it is really something that we have to watch and where we have to develop strategies. And in the workshop later that my colleague Philip, who's just coming in, having the flu, will run. He will give you a little bit of a background of how that open access policy for books for publishers can work. 20 years later, we are in 2018 now, and can have a little bit of a review of what happened over the last 20 years in open access publishing. So I think there are four major thrusts that we have to look at, and I would like to discuss them in a little bit more detail. First of all, critical mass, creating critical mass in one business model to really convince publishers to come on board is obviously essential. Secondly, the support from academics is vital to make open access a sustainable model, not only as a business model, but also as a publication and an access model. Thirdly, books obviously play a role. Otherwise, some disciplines are completely left out of the conversation, and that is not something that any of the players, publishers, librarians, or researchers can really want. And thirdly, fourthly, rather, I think there's an interesting trend right now over the last 2 years probably that libraries and funders are suddenly able to coordinate globally in a really efficient way so that they can shift money not only in one university, not just in one state in Mexico, but that they can say within the European Union we have a game plan for major countries to shift the budget. So critical mass in one business model, you just see a little bit here. This is the articles that have been published in the directory of open access journals. You can see that the volume is going up significantly, that the growth is more or less exponential. And it's important to know that there has been a focus, as I said several times now, on journals. 99% of all funding still goes into journals, 1% into books. We are talking about a market of $500 million US every year last year. So you see that it makes sense to still be a journal publisher, which also immediately shows the limits of the disruptive element of open access in the political way. The major drivers are funders like Wellcome and Max Planck, who basically made it mandatory that the articles coming out of the research they funded would have to be published open access. So you don't get any money if you don't publish open access. And that is something that also researchers understand, as you can imagine. The article processing charges, the APC model, is the dominant model. There are different ones like grant funding and library funding. Philip will speak a little bit to that later in the workshop. I don't want to go into too much detail. The market penetration of open access across the board is now somewhere between 5 and 20% of the annual output. So there are some disciplines where open access is critical already and where important work is being published in open access. In some other cases, it's still a rather specific niche. Libraries are increasingly spending their budgets on open access. Now that's great news. A lot of libraries around the world have now APC or BPC, book processing charges funds, and spend it to support open access and not just talk about it. The ecosystem and the willingness of the established publishers to change their publishing behavior has significantly been impacted by new players, which is always important to disrupt if you want a marketplace. If just the old guys are staying there, there is very little incentive to change. Now suddenly there are publishers who basically start anew, like PLOS, the Public Library of Science in North America, Hindawi, Frontiers from Switzerland, and a number of other publishers. They don't bother about print sales, subscriptions, hybrid publications, and so on. They basically say, we will publish anything that is good enough to be published in our journal after peer review if the author brings the money. But in open access still today, 50% of the market, 50% of the money, $250 million every year, go to the 3 major publishers. And guess what? These publishers are the publishers from the past. So the disruption of the system didn't work in that respect. However, the access model has changed significantly. And I'm convinced, by the way, that the APC model will need to be revised. And the major funders in Europe, at least, the German Research Foundation, the Wellcome Trust, Couperin in France, and so on, are now reviewing their funding policies to see how they can better align their political goals, their economic goals, with a funding structure beyond APCs. Broadening the support from academics now, that's difficult because in many cases you have to just wait for a cohort of researchers to grow out of university. That has been the case for electronic publishing in the 1990s and early 2000s. That is also the case for open access. That does not mean that researchers who are now older than 55 don't endorse open access. They oftentimes do, but the likelihood and the penetration of open access supporters in younger cohorts of researchers is much higher. As I said, the problem with researchers is they don't care about the cost of publishing because they don't pay it personally. The institution pays for it. And if Nature or Science ask for a very high article processing charge, they would say, well, this has the greatest impact. These are the most important journals with the highest impact factors, whether that is a fair parameter or not. So you as a library, you as a funder, make sure that you bring the money so I can publish in these journals that have already accepted my paper. I think some disciplines have been pretty vocal about open access. So mathematics is probably one of the fields where there has been a lot of support for open access. Same is true for linguistics and for anthropology. There are simply some fields that are, you can also quote high energy physics, but there are some disciplines which are simply too rich to really care about open access because they can also pay for high subscription prices. That is, for example, the clinical medicine field in the very early days. That has changed now. And what I think is important, and that is where the debate stands now, it doesn't help to put a file on a server and call that open access. That is not open access publishing, as much as it is not like proper publishing if I put my book here and say everybody could theoretically buy it. Open access publishing needs metrics, needs parameters, and it needs to prove the impact that it can have for the researcher, because that is the only element that really moves researchers into that. So usage reporting, marketing techniques to really popularize the content are important for the support, to gain the support of academics. Speaking about books, I have mentioned that they have been almost left out over the last few years. That is changing dramatically now. There are countries like the UK, for example, with this trend of new university presses that are mostly fully digital and very supportive of open access, but also other markets where you can see that the market share is going up rather rapidly. So open access books is the fastest growing segment in open access publishing, albeit on a very small basis. So it makes up for 1 to 3% of the global open access market, almost nothing. It is a highly fragmented field because every publisher basically says, well, if somebody wants it, if an author talks about it, we can somehow do it, but many people doubt before they start publishing open access that there is a business model behind it. So it is not about putting content up for free, everybody can do that, but it is about creating a sustainable business model beyond selling books and electronic access. It's interesting to see that this space has for long been ignored by the large publishers. And you know that there are volume publishers in academic publishing, specifically Springer Nature and Taylor and Francis, that all publish 7,000 to 12,000 new books every year. So just to give you an idea. And they have ignored the field for quite a while. They are now moving into open access for books. So far it has been driven very much by small commercial presses around the world, but also by university presses, for example, in North America. So very early on, those players really defined open access strategies and For example, the Mellon Foundation and others really supported developing this new approach. There are 2 or 3 ways of funding open access for books. So it is either through grants, so Mellon is one of the great financiers in that field. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is active in that field as well. But also it's what we call diamond open access, basically libraries, institutions funding open access publishing through crowdfunding and other techniques. And here are the logos of a few players. So Knowledge Unlatched, you will hear about a little bit later. The University of California Press with Luminos as a membership model. Language Science Press as an academically led press in linguistics. And UCL Press, the University College London Press, which has made quite some headlines with their model of how to fund open access. Global coordination. You can imagine that big publishers have always taken advantage of an intransparent marketplace. So it is really nice to negotiate with a lot of different universities. You know that these big publishers have large sales forces, and it's very easy to negotiate with them one by one, thereby kind of cutting the pie into pieces from the very beginning and avoiding that they can consolidate their bargaining power. There have been consortia very early on for print and for electronic, but they really never managed to get the critical mass that is needed beyond a certain group of libraries. In open access, that is different, and since it's new, there is no kind of traditional market, if you want, but nationwide or even global coordination is now possible. So if you look up what a group in Germany called Project Deal does, for example, they have created a group of 250 to 300 libraries negotiating as one group with Elsevier for the paywalled and also for the open access. That is a volume of between, I would estimate, 30 and 50 million every year, and that makes a difference even for a larger player like Elsevier. In the United Kingdom, there's also a change. The REF, the Research Framework 2027, will also fund open access books, not only journals as they did so far. And there is now a need in a research-intense country like the United Kingdom to really come up with one structure to support the distribution of money and also to keep the quality measures within academic publishing up. What's important in this game is 2 things. I just put down one. I just realized. One is the pressure from policymakers like the European Union, the nation states, the states within, for example, Germany, or groups within France. But what is also important is that there is a new competitor which is illegal, which is called Sci-Hub. I guess you all know Sci-Hub. And there are very easy ways now to basically break the access monopoly that the big publishers had in the past. So I am not advocating to use illegal content on Sci-Hub. I'm just saying it makes it much more difficult for the large publishers to hold the line and basically keep their negotiation power up. How about the future? What remains to be done? I think what works for journals and for research monographs has to be expanded to other fields in open access. So open textbooks is a field where a lot of small initiatives are active. It is very difficult and different in funding. I think that is something where we will see more developments in the future. I think we need to make sure that we also include all world regions into open access, because so far it is very much a European, North American game in the funding and also in the output structure. Other regions like Latin America, like parts of Asia and also Africa are kind of falling behind. And I don't mean the usage side, of course, but also the publication side. And I think for this movement, it is really important to connect globally and make sure that open access publications is being respected as a quality publication, and also that different countries like your countries contribute to the funding of open access. Otherwise, it will collapse at a certain point because the UK government or the American government or the European Union will say, wait a minute, we are not here to fund everybody's research. The others have to chip in and really form a group, an alliance of funders. That is also important for the content, the language side. So far, open access is largely an English language show, and we need to make sure that there are smaller languages also represented in an adequate way. There are initiatives in Latin America, for example, which you might know about, and also in France, in different states of Europe, but it's really important to connect them so that the content is being discoverable as well. The funding should be sustainable, so we should not be dependent in open access on the funding from library directors' budgets where they say, you know, okay, let's play a little bit with money and let's try something out, but it really has to be a sustainable model, yet decentral. So I'm not a big fan of the European Union putting up a pot of 200 million that funds all open access. It has to come from a library side, from an institutional level at a university to really make sure that the demands of the researchers are mirrored and it's not just a big machine that changes money from left to right. I think publishers, and I mentioned that already, need to move beyond just putting up files, but they really need to invest into services to convince long-term new groups of authors to join open access publishing. So analytics is important, hosting in stable systems is important, additional services around publishing the content is important, and that is something where I think that you as the publishing community have the greatest part to contribute to make open access better. And I think it is important to look more at a cooperative approach to scholarly publishing. You know that there are always these fronts between the evil E and the good publishers and the nice libraries, the big libraries, the small libraries. That doesn't help. In an interconnected world, it should be led by interest and not by cliches about each other, basically. And I think that is something that should be really changed. I can see in my own company, in Knowledge Unlatched, that there is a lot of cooperation among publishers, which is not, which you can't find in the paywalled content world. So I think there is hope that there will be quite some change. And that is it already. Thank you for your attention. I hope this was helpful, and I'm happy for your questions. Yeah, wait. Do you want a mic? Yeah, you want a mic.
My name is Thomas Minkus. I'm going to speak this afternoon about rights, so I have a rights-related question. First of all, Sven, thank you for this very interesting presentation. Two things. This is the first time I find it really easy and convenient to understand what's going on with open access, so thank you for that. Number two, would it be possible to get a copy of your presentation? I hope so. And if so, how? But now my question. So
can I answer that first?
Yeah.
So number one, great, thanks a lot. So I'm glad that it was understandable, at least for you. And of course, I think you can share I don't know how you do that, but I'm happy to
If you are okay with that, we can share the files, of course.
Yeah.
So you said that with books, open access is still in its infancy, but you see that as a growth sector right now. Now, and also you said that the majority of works are published in English. Now, what I'm thinking about, and this might be a very special question, is what about translation rights? So if a book wants to get translated, or if a publisher from Italy wants to come to a UK publisher and says, okay, you have this beautiful open access book, I want to publish it in Italy, in Italian, how does that work? Is it any different from a traditional publishing model?
Yeah, it's very different, and I didn't pay attention to that and put emphasis on it. So almost all content that is being published open access is not covered by normal publishing contracts, but rather by Creative Commons licenses. So the difference here being depending on the depth of the license, if you want, of the intensity of the license, the author always keeps the copyright. So in this case, if the Italian publisher would approach the UK publisher would say, great idea, why don't you talk to the author, because he holds all rights, and he can then decide whether he wants to see this in Italian language or not, and I can't imagine that he or she would say no.
But isn't that also a bit of a nightmare, because many authors that I know do not really want to care about translation rights, nor do they know anything about translation rights, nor do they have any experience. So isn't that an obstacle in itself?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, whenever you give an author more control over their work, it certainly assumes that they also understand what they are doing. And in many cases regarding rights, for example, especially specific rights, they don't. So that's why I think it's really important that the original publisher in this case understands that his role changes from holding a copyright, kind of buying out a copyright, to providing a service. So, and of course, as a publisher, and we have seen that at Knowledge Unlatched in many cases, as a publisher, you have to go back to the author and explain them what CC BY means, what ORCID as an identifier is, all these kinds of things. So they still require these services, and I think publishers should always also be paid for it, of course, should be paid for it. So they shouldn't do it for free. The idea, my idea, I'm too commercial to say this should all be for free. It is clear that whenever the publisher does something, they should get money for that, but it has to be really transparent what they get the money for. And there is a strong trend in the large funding organizations like Max Planck, for example, to have extra budgets to provide these services. So clearing of image rights, for example, it's always a nightmare with authors. They always say that they have cleared the rights, but they almost never did. And they never have the right resolution of images, all these kinds of things. I think publishers can build businesses on these kinds of requirements and help researchers to make their lives easier.
¿Hay más preguntas de parte del público antes de pasar?
Sí, gracias, buenos días. Soy artista plástica y escribo libros infantiles. Siempre es un problema.
No, it's fine.
Yo le
I'm getting
está
my...
bien.
Okay. Siempre es un problema en México la publicación de algo, porque no te garantizan los derechos de la autoría si no lo registras. Y yo pregunto si ustedes tienen alguna garantía para la publicación, para el escrito, el texto y para las imágenes, o si no lo tienen contemplado. Gracias.
As far as I understand it, it's about copyright for images and for text, and especially the combination of the two. This is, and there Thomas is right, this is really very much up to the negotiation between the author and the publisher. In academic publishing, usually the author holds, at least in STM publishing, the author holds the rights because it's a graph of something that he has measured or whatever. So he is the rights holder. That is different in the humanities and social sciences. In art history, if you write a book on Bruegel, then it's really, I mean, you don't own the rights, you need to get the rights for that. If we move into trade publishing, also into working extensively with citations and quotes, this is really difficult, and there are no tools to do that. There are some companies like the Copyright Clearance Center that can help with providing these services, but they are by no means perfect. And I think it is not a difference between like paywalled publishing, regular publishing, and open access publishing. It is a mess all over the place.
Hello. I believe the question was in the sense that whether the original product has to be registered somewhere in a government instance before it's published. And I believe it should, because otherwise anyone can say that wrote that. Or it's like having a house and not registering in the public registry. Well, somebody can come in and say it's yours. So I think that the question goes more to the official part of owning the property and how you should register it.
Yeah, thanks for the clarification. But there is no, in open access publishing, the idea is that the owner, the originator of the content, the originator of the content is always the owner. There are very different copyrights in the world. So, for example, in the US and in Europe you cannot basically transfer your copyright. You can only transfer the use of the copyright. That might be different in other parts of the world. But the registration in open access works in a way that the book gets, within the book, if it's printed or as a file, CC stamp, basically. And that stamp clearly says that you are the originator of the content. You have written the book, you have drawn the images. That is very clear. It is then in the public domain, and nobody else can claim that he or she produced either the drawings or the text. But there is no central registry as like in the past there was the ISBN agency or these rather central institutions.
O sea que yo entrego mis textos. A ver, gracias. O sea que yo entrego mis textos sin imágenes. Finalmente el audiolibro pues es verbal todo, ¿no?
No.
Well, if it comes to an
Pero habría que hacer entonces dos diferentes ediciones, ¿verdad?
No,
that is correct. That is correct. In Creative Commons licensing, it is always the case that the originator, the author, let me call it the author has to assign rights to every edition. Hardcover, softcover, translated edition, audiobook, whatever. So indeed, it's much more work for a regular author if they want to do that. Now, in academic publishing, that is really easy because it is one journal article that is being published in English once, full stop, that's it. That is more different in trade publishing, and I don't know of too many successful models in trade publishing regarding open access so far. So it is still very much an academic thing because you also need the funding.
Excuse me for the stubbornness, but even in academic publishing, if you place a content in open access and another investigator comes and tells you that was my original work and it's registered, what happens? And it was registered properly before it was published by you. It's plagiarism. How do you handle that?
So the person that claims that he or she is the originator of a content has to prove that by the publication. So you basically I have to basically say, I published my article 2 days before Marie-Fé published her article, which she claims now was her original idea. And that is indeed a problem in high-intensity research fields, like the life sciences, where you have a high speed of publication, so there it is difficult. But that is by no means different in other cases. If you publish your article with Nature and somebody else publishes the article with Science, it is also the question who was first. And you know the famous case about HIV and AIDS between the French and the US team, where exactly that happened, where the French team said that they were held up in their publication process and the Americans discovered HIV and AIDS. So I think that's not new. That's not genuine to open access. Has always been a problem in academic publishing.
This is work. It's very dangerous.
Well, it depends for whom it is dangerous. It's dangerous for the person plagiarizing, of
No,
course.
you're a researcher at any university, and you produce extraordinary discovery, but you register for derechos de autor here in Mexico, but then someone else comes and just takes it and publishes it with you.
Yeah. As I said,
it's robbery.
I think absolutely, and I think it is dangerous. There's no doubt about it, but that is not specific to open access. That is also true for subscribed content. It can always happen that because you don't have a full transparency of a market, because somebody in Japan publishes an article on your work and you publish it in Mexico, you certainly can have these conflicts all the time.
¿No hay más preguntas? Bueno, de todas formas, después de la siguiente mesa redonda habrá 30 minutos de pausa donde puedan seguir hablando sobre las dudas que tienen en cuanto al acceso abierto y el tema de los derechos. Quiero invitar ahora al escenario a Lara Manville de la Ottawa University Press de Canadá, a Juan Felipe Córdoba de la Universidad del Rosario de Colombia y a Guillermo Chávez de la UNAM de México. Sven moderará la mesa y se trata del panorama de las editoriales universitarias que trabajan en acceso abierto.
Good, so we are changing a little bit the format now, and I'm really happy that we have a panel of 3 people who have been working in open access for quite some time. Just to give you a little bit of an idea of what we want to achieve in the next hour, first of all, everybody introduces him or herself with a few statements that should not take more than 5 minutes. I am never sure whether the timing between Latin America and Europe is the same, but I will trust my watch. So let's see how we manage that, guys. So after a short introduction, we will discuss a few issues around where open access stands, where it's different in different parts of the world, which I find really interesting, what the specific challenges are. And then we want to open the floor and the debate to you so that your questions to your colleagues or to Lara, who is also our colleague but comes from a different part of the world, can be discussed. Okay? Whenever you have a question in between, whenever you feel it's getting boring, too intense or whatever, please interrupt us. I think we are creative enough to deal with that. I think we'll start with Lara, with the ladies, to introduce herself and what exactly she is doing at Ottawa University Press when it comes to open access. Okay?
Buenos dias, and that's about all I'm going to say in Spanish this morning. My name is Lara Manville. I'm the director of the University of Ottawa Press, which is located right next door, or almost, to Capitol Hill in Ottawa. The press is 80 years old, 82 years old, and we have 83 open access titles now in our open access collection. And that represents about 14.5% of our total list. So we have about 550 titles currently in circulation. And over and beyond that, we also have a great partnership with the Canadian Museum of Civilizations, recently renamed the Canadian Museum of History. And We also, therefore, have an additional 560 ebooks from their digitized backlist, and as well as the front list. So, and
Let me do this and you continue.
okay. Oh, okay. Just a couple, perhaps a few additional words, and you stop me when I've reached my 5 minutes. We publish about 30 titles a year, every year. We are a bilingual press, French and English. And so every year we publish 4 front list open access titles of the 30 titles. So we are growing our open access collection, and that is part of our mandate, but it's also part of the university's mandate to support open access. Et voilà, I will stop now.
Wonderful. Thanks, Lara. Continue with what?
Gracias, Sven. Buenos días. Gracias a Contec por la invitación. Es un gusto estar acá en la Feria de Frankfurt. De verdad, y a este centro tan hermoso en la Ciudad de México. Yo soy el director editorial de la Universidad del Rosario en Bogotá, en Colombia. Esta editorial cumplió este año 20 años de creada. Cuenta en su fondo de publicaciones de libros con 850 títulos. De estos están en el catálogo vivo 450. Además, publica en revistas académicas, científicas, y tiene 10 revistas académicas en diferentes áreas del conocimiento. Eso nos ubica en el concierto nacional como la 4ª editorial universitaria en producción nacional. En el proyecto editorial tenemos contemplado por mandato institucional políticas de acceso abierto que fueron promulgadas en el 2016, lo cual nos permite ir desarrollando un proyecto de abierto desde hace 2 años. A la fecha contamos con 15 títulos publicados en abierto y en camino vienen otros 15. La meta es que contemos para el 2018 con 30 libros en abierto. Entonces, esto es más o menos la editorial universitaria, pero adicional, yo soy el presidente de la Asociación de Editoriales Universitarias de Colombia, en la cual están reunidas 65 universidades del país, y adicional hago parte de la red de editores universitarios de América Latina, EULAC, donde están congregadas las redes nacionales de México, Centroamérica, Colombia, Ecuador, Perú, Chile, Argentina y Brasil. Entonces ahí estamos en un diálogo permanente. Ayer que hablaba con Sven le mostraba un estudio del cual vamos a ver un poco más adelante sobre la pregunta de qué es acceso abierto para América Latina. Y ya veremos un poco más adelante cuáles fueron los resultados para la región. Esa es la presentación.
Hola, buenos días a todos. Gracias por la invitación de Contec. Mi nombre es Guillermo Chávez, soy el subdirector de revistas académicas y publicaciones digitales en la Dirección General de Publicaciones y Fomento Editorial de la UNAM. Pues ya llevo algunos años trabajando el tema de acceso abierto dentro de las publicaciones universitarias en la UNAM. Como bien lo ha dicho Sven, creo que las revistas han sido las pioneras, las revistas académicas sobre todo, han sido las pioneras en adaptar las iniciativas del acceso abierto que se han promulgado a nivel internacional. Dentro de la universidad tenemos más o menos 140 revistas. Quizá pareciera un número muy grande, pero pues bueno, vamos a compararlo también con las dimensiones de la universidad, donde somos 120 entidades universitarias entre institutos, centros, escuelas, facultades. o direcciones generales, y todas ellas con su propia autonomía, con su propio presupuesto. Bueno, de alguna manera todas ellas se alinean a la rectoría, a las líneas rectoras, pero bueno, tienen cierta facilidad y flexibilidad para ejercer sus propios presupuestos y sus propios procedimientos. Entonces, en cada una de estas dependencias se publican diferentes tipos de revistas, o se han venido publicando diferentes tipos de revistas, y desde un inicio, sin considerarlo, yo creo, totalmente asociado al movimiento del acceso abierto, pues bueno, la Universidad Nacional Autónoma de México ha sido una de las precursoras de este movimiento, porque todas sus publicaciones periódicas prácticamente, con excepción de 2 que tengo bien identificadas, pues han sido publicadas de forma libre y gratuita, ¿no? Y se ha promovido en los últimos años que todas estas revistas, las 140, tengan esa salida de forma libre y gratuita. Particularmente, creo que sí, efectivamente coincide con las fechas que mencionas, Ben, a finales de la década de los 90 fue cuando empezamos a hacer uso de la tecnología para poner todas estas publicaciones en línea de forma libre y gratuita. Después de las declaraciones de Bethesda, Berlín y Budapest, bueno, pues en el 2006 por ahí también nuestro entonces rector Juan Ramón de la Fuente se adhirió en esta página de acceso abierto de Berlín a la iniciativa, abiertamente a la iniciativa mundial del acceso abierto. Ahí está la firma de la universidad. Fue en el 2006 cuando nos adherimos a esta iniciativa. Y bueno, posteriormente de ahí también hemos venido trabajando en diversas iniciativas ya institucionales. Por ahí me parece que fue en el 2011 cuando se genera una iniciativa institucional que se llamó Toda la UNAM en línea y que sigue permanente, y que es una iniciativa que trata de impulsar a que todas las dependencias publiquen y pongan en la medida de lo posible toda su producción en acceso abierto bajo el dominio unam.mx. Posteriormente a esta iniciativa de la UNAM, a nivel nacional aquí en México también hubo una promulgación de parte del CONACYT en donde se promovía o se promueve, y está vigente esta iniciativa, que todas aquellas publicaciones que fueran producto de la investigación, que fueran producto de la investigación y de la tecnología, y que fueran financiadas con recursos públicos, pues pudieran estar disponibles bajo acceso abierto dentro de los sistemas electrónicos. Un año después, la universidad en el 2015 también promulgó el tema, bueno, una iniciativa, ya un pronunciamiento institucional sobre el acceso abierto, en donde promueve, no es mandatorio, pero sí promueve mucho para que este tipo de publicaciones pudieran estar disponibles en acceso abierto, con la intención de acercar la investigación y la difusión de la cultura hacia todos los universitarios y el público en general. Y a raíz de esta promulgación también de acceso abierto, que fue de la UNAM, que fue en el 2015, fue entonces cuando en el 2016 se publicaron las nuevas disposiciones generales para la actividad editorial de la UNAM a través de la Dirección General de Publicaciones y Fomento Editorial, y ahí ya se aborda específicamente el tema del acceso abierto, y esta publicación o esta decisión más bien de qué ediciones de la universidad podrían o no estar en acceso abierto o en formato comercial, pues recae directamente en cada uno de los comités editoriales de las facultades, dependencias e institutos. Son ellas quienes, de acuerdo a sus objetivos, a sus líneas de acción, a sus temáticas y a sus líneas de investigación, pues entonces son quienes deberían de estar decidiendo si las publicaciones van al acceso abierto o van al ámbito comercial. Bueno, pues hasta ahí me quedo por el momento para seguir la discusión.
Thank you very much. I think this was already a great deal of insight in how your institutions work and why they engage in open access. I was really struck by the fact that you mentioned 120 institutions within your university, and you feel that they are united about open access. So if we look a little bit closer at all of your institutions, where do you see most of the concerns or resistance or whatever you want to call it about open access, and what do you do to help overcome it? Because I would assume that if there is a mission by the university, it is in your interest to promote open access. How exactly do you do that? How do you approach people that are critical and don't see the value of open access? Do you just leave them alone, or do you try to convince them?
Ok, bueno, pues sucede algo curioso dentro de la universidad. En general, la comunidad de académicos y investigadores sí están de acuerdo con el Open Access. Tienes razón en mencionar que hay algunas áreas del conocimiento, como la medicina, que son las que mayormente se rehúsan a participar en este movimiento. Pero en general, todas las demás áreas, y particularmente las de las ciencias sociales y las humanidades, están muy convencidas de que el acceso abierto es una forma de facilitar el acceso al conocimiento y compartir la investigación científica. Sucedió algo muy curioso y por eso lo menciono. En el 2013 la universidad firmó un convenio con Elsevier, ¿no?, para publicar o para apoyar de alguna manera la edición de, creo que eran 44 revistas las que nosotros subimos a este convenio con Elsevier. Y bueno, pues hubo aceptación y hubo rechazo. La aceptación vino principalmente de aquellos equipos editoriales donde no estaban fortalecidos como equipo, eran muy pobres en su conformación de los equipos. Solamente trabajaba el director de la revista y si acaso un becario que le ayudaba. Entonces, todos los servicios editoriales que Elsevier proporcionaba a través de ese contrato, donde les ayudaba a la corrección de estilo, a la maquetación, a la formación en XML de cada uno de los artículos, les ofrecía la herramienta de gestión editorial para hacer los procesos editoriales, la recepción y la dictaminación de los artículos a través de sus plataformas, y además, bueno, pues facilitaba la publicación de esos artículos en los diferentes sistemas de Elsevier, como Science Direct, que bueno, pues eso definitivamente ayudó mucho a la visibilidad de esos artículos. Pues esas revistas aceptaron muy bien a esta editorial. Pero todos los demás criticaron, fíjate, la participación de la UNAM, o la firma de este contrato con Elsevier, porque decían, ¿cómo vamos a estar pagando, ¿no?, doblemente? Además, bueno, nosotros tenemos la capacidad de publicar en acceso abierto, ¿y por qué le tenemos que estar pagando a una editorial privada para que entonces nos pueda estar publicando a su vez también en otros sistemas? Pues bueno, ahí está. Creo que en general fue muy fuerte la crítica que se recibió. Por eso lo digo que en general la comunidad tiene una tendencia a la adopción del acceso abierto, sobre todo porque dentro de la universidad también hemos promovido 2 sistemas a nivel regional que han sido muy importantes para el acceso abierto en América Latina. Uno de ellos es Latindex, que se ha gestionado dentro de la UNAM, y el otro de ellos es el nodo de Cielo México, este sistema para el marcado de artículos en XML y con ello generar métricas del factor de impacto y análisis bibliométrico muy importantes en la región.
So, how do we convince authors to publish in open access? Well, first of all, we simply ask them if they are interested. Some authors actually come to the press now because they want to publish their book in open access. And that to me is very encouraging and very positive, because it means that the message that we are publishing in open access is actually getting out there, and it's being viewed and received positively. And it also confirms to me that what we are publishing as open access books and the way that our readers are receiving them is that we are publishing quality peer-reviewed books. And the open access version is not a preliminary version or an unfinished version of the book that we want to sell, right? We are actually publishing the final PDF files. So the authors really like that, and we have been tracking data and have started providing data to our authors. We're comparing sales data, we're comparing usage, page views, as well as downloads, and we're starting to generate interesting data from that. Of course, it's an ongoing process, and we're refining our metrics as we, every single time that we make those, that we make our updates. In Canada, there has been a debate around open access. Of course, there are not all publishers, not all university presses have embraced open access publishing as yet. The three major ones, so University of Toronto Press, McGill Queen's University Press, and University of British Columbia Press, UBC Press, they have not yet, but they are starting to look at ways of, and actually I think that, if I'm not mistaken, I think that some of them have even pledged books with Knowledge Unlatched. So the open access monograph publishing is on the rise in Canada, and I think that publishers know, academic presses know that it is the way forward, because our funders are mandating open access. They've done it for journals, and we are quite certain that open access publishing for monographs is on its way as well.
Thanks, Lara. Juan, just to add one component before you answer the question, because we had a longer conversation over lunch yesterday, and you mentioned the important role of repositories. Is that a competition to university publishing, university press publishing, or is that cooperative, or how would you basically see the researcher between the repository and the university press in this kind of, let's call it a triangle or whatever it might be?
Sí. Te respondo enseguida a lo de los repositorios. Antes quiero una reflexión es que no solamente es convencer a los autores del acceso abierto, es convencer también a los editores del acceso abierto. No todos los editores académicos en las universidades están en la línea del acceso abierto. Te mostraba ayer el estudio sobre 150 universidades de América Latina y el resultado realmente nos dejó sorprendidos, porque descubrimos que parte de lo que existe en la región es que no entendemos qué es acceso abierto. O sea, se tiende a confundir. Se tiende a confundir por una cosa: hay una tradición en el mundo editorial que obedece a la industria natural de lo que tenemos todos en la cabeza, y la pregunta que nos hacemos: ¿y quién paga la cuenta? O sea, cuando tú decías hace un momento lo del modelo de negocio, es algo que requiere capacitación, entenderse, porque no todos lo tienen resuelto. Porque, como decía Lara, una cosa es publicar y editar, y otra cosa es un informe de investigación. Un informe uno lo puede publicar. Un texto editado es un texto que lleva procesos, que lleva garantizada una calidad y tiene una suerte de responsabilidad del editor frente a su lector. En el caso de las revistas que mencionaba Guillermo, sí, América Latina, por razones que podríamos discutir, decidió que todas sus revistas fueran en abierto, las revistas académicas. ¿Por qué? Yo tengo una teoría frente a eso: porque no las consultaba nadie. Una cosa es la lengua. O sea, escribir en español tiene unas condiciones particulares, y no estar en las grandes ligas de la consulta en inglés, obviamente, lo deja uno rezagada en las métricas y en los datos que uno puede construir a la hora de ser consultado. Aparece en ese escenario de la edición del abierto los repositorios institucionales. Y los repositorios institucionales, también en búsqueda de ser vistos, consultados, pues pretenden que todo lo que se haga en una institución esté alojado en el repositorio. Yo creo que no es una competencia, es una sumatoria de esfuerzos. Uno tiene que garantizar que lo que se produce esté en muchas partes, no solamente jalar métricas y datos, sino que el lector llegue a la información que está buscando. Yo creo que cuando uno, yo siempre hago el ejemplo del mundo analógico, eso es como si yo dejara mi libro en una librería y obligar al lector a que tiene que ir solamente a esa librería porque solamente está ahí. O sea, cuando yo busco información, yo debo llegar a ella independientemente de dónde esté alojada, si está en abierto y es gratuito. Yo creo que yo estoy usando últimamente una frase de mi juventud que se llama sumar todas las formas de lucha para poder lograr un buen resultado de aquello que estamos haciendo. Lara mencionaba algo que yo vengo trabajando que se llama lector. El lector es realmente el destino final de aquello que estamos produciendo, libros. El lector académico tiene unas particularidades especiales, pertenece a redes de conocimiento y el autor y sus lectores congregan esa red. Esa red, el editor tiene una llave que puede girar y abrir. Si yo estoy en abierto con alguna producción de ese autor, es posible que los otros textos que ese mismo autor haya producido puedan ser consultados, inclusive los artículos de revista. Entonces yo creo que lo que podemos propiciar desde las editoriales universitarias es mucho más que simplemente el acceso abierto. Es buscar algo que a mí me gusta mucho que se llama ¿cuál es el modelo de negocio? O sea, no es el negocio para generar dividendos enormes, sino que permita que aquello que hacemos pueda seguir haciéndose bien. La Unión Europea no tiene que poner los recursos para la edición en abierto de América Latina, eso le corresponde a América Latina. El asunto es sentarnos, aprender que es abierto, buscar los recursos, reconocer la importancia del abierto. Hay una cosa que abierto no significa que me consulten. Para que me consulten tengo que construir la comunidad y tengo que construir los lectores. Sin eso, yo tengo abierto y unas ventas. No, yo quiero discusión, yo quiero debate, yo quiero avance del saber, avance de la ciencia como editor. Y obviamente le estoy contribuyendo a la universidad a la que pertenezco y a la sociedad en la cual me encuentro.
Yeah, thank you for this clear picture of the like different priorities and different issues that we are facing. You all mentioned discoverability as the core element of open access. So obviously there is the business model side. Let's speak about that in a minute. I think there's also a difference between the importance of business models for university presses and for, call them commercial presses. But I guess that's a second element. For the first part now, discoverability, Juan, you mentioned that basically mirroring content into different repositories is one way of increasing discoverability. At Knowledge Unlatched, we are working, for example, with commercial providers like JSTOR and Project Muse. I'm sure you work with them as well, Lara. So where is the interaction for the Latin American presses particularly to also reach, as you just mentioned, Juan, to also reach beyond the continent, beyond the language barrier, because research shouldn't be kind of restrained to just one area and just one language zone, right? So how do you cooperate with other types of players that are more commercial, like JSTOR would be, for example, in this international field?
Bueno, desde la UNAM sí hemos identificado que podemos, o sea, que no está peleado la publicación en acceso abierto con la participación también con editoriales entonces comerciales. Particularmente me refiero a una con la que estamos por ahí acercándonos y bueno, viendo la posibilidad de cómo poder ampliar los lugares en donde se puedan consultar nuestras revistas en acceso abierto. Y es JSTOR. ¿no? O sea, ya tenemos conocimiento nosotros de que de esas 140 revistas que les he mencionado, aproximadamente 90 son las que se catalogan como de investigación científica. Pero bueno, nosotros las tenemos depositadas en nuestro repositorio institucional con ciertos servicios en donde, bueno, pues está disponible para su consulta libre y gratuita. Tenemos ciertos servicios nada más que ofrecemos ahí, hacemos métricas, damos seguimiento y bueno, pues estamos constantemente informando a los directores de las revistas de cuál ha sido la evolución, el posicionamiento que tiene su revista dentro de los índices internacionales. Pero bueno, sabemos bien que entonces JSTOR es una editorial que ofrece servicios con un valor agregado que nosotros no tenemos y que va a ir y va a ofrecer posiblemente todos estos contenidos que nosotros tenemos en acceso abierto y que les va a agregar valor para poderlos ofrecer a bibliotecas o a centros educativos con otra perspectiva y otro tipo de consulta. Entonces, estamos viendo la posibilidad de que también estas revistas que ya tenemos en nuestro repositorio ahí depositadas, pues podamos incluirlas en estos sistemas en donde ellos le agregan valor y entonces tenemos por ahí quizá una retribución sin perder los derechos siguen siendo de la universidad, los derechos patrimoniales siempre serán de la universidad, eso lo cuidamos, no se va a perder. Cuidamos también que entonces las licencias, y aquí es algo que tiene que ver con el plagio que estaban mencionando hace rato, bueno, que las licencias podemos hacer uso de otros modelos como Creative Commons en donde perfectamente se delimita cuál es el uso que se permite para el recurso que está disponible en línea y sin entorpecer el cuidado de los derechos de autor y el plagio. Ese tipo de recursos es lo que estamos explorando para nuestras publicaciones en acceso abierto. Y lo mismo vamos para allá con los libros, ¿no? Ahorita he estado hablando de las revistas porque ha sido lo que tradicionalmente hemos venido trabajando desde principios del 2000, ¿no? Pero los libros que también se han ido publicando ahí como de forma perdida dentro de nuestra universidad, por ahí podemos encontrar algunos libros que se publicaron en HTML en el 2002, ¿no? Y que todavía están por ahí y son alguna tecnología como muy anterior, pero están curiosos y están ahí. Y que fueron sometidos a un proceso editorial formal, tuvieron su dictaminación y están ahí disponibles. Bueno, pues estamos haciendo la recopilación de todos esos libros, tienen su ISBN, han tenido su registro y estamos haciendo toda la recopilación para tener también un repositorio en donde podamos ofrecer todo el catálogo de libros de la universidad que estén disponibles en acceso abierto. Bueno, de forma libre y gratuita, ¿no? Porque muchas veces no se declara específicamente que está en acceso abierto. También eso estamos tratando de regularizarlo. Si vamos a hablar de acceso abierto, pues entonces sí hay que declararlo para que ser consistentes con el movimiento. Pero entonces todos esos libros también les buscaremos por ahí al ojo en otros sistemas de indiciación o editoriales o de información en donde puedan ser comerciales quizá y también puedan tener un valor agregado en su recuperación y su uso de la información.
Lara, how about you? How do you cooperate basically with different outlets to maximize the reach, which I guess you as a press, but also your authors are interested in?
Well, I'm just in from San Francisco, where I was attending the the Association of University Presses annual conference, and so JSTOR was there, and so was ProQuest, and so were they all. And what we are in the process of doing right now is making sure that all of our products, including our open access offerings, are all aligned. They all have the same terms, etc. And with open access, it's a little bit difficult still, but it's much easier now than it was a couple of years ago when nobody had the technical capability to give something for free. There had to be something in that price box. And now JSTOR is able to do it. ProQuest isn't quite yet, but they're working on it. It's also, I mean, honestly, it wasn't really to their advantage to give things away, right? They don't get their commission. But of course, they're all heading that way as well. My personal view is that while I obviously I, as well as you, we all need to manage our bottom lines and make sure that we are sustainable next year, in 5 years, and 10 years. But at the same time, we are also mission-based, and we need to ensure that our authors and the knowledge that they've produced for over so many years is actually gets in the hands of the people who are going to read those books. And so I strongly feel that any way that we can market our open access books, whether it's through, course adoptions. I have no problems approaching professors and saying, you should adopt this book partially because it's open access. It's also a great textbook, but also because it's open access. So students who couldn't afford the textbook are able to consult it online. But most professors also say that students still want to buy the print copy. So to me, it's just an additional tool in my marketing toolbox. And that has been working very well, actually, because in the past couple of weeks, I've been attending several conferences, and I've been presenting our books that way. And we have gotten some course adoptions because of that. So that is a far cry from what everyone was telling me. Open access is going to kill your bottom line. You won't be around in 5 years. So I think my personal feeling is that we're all adapting in this incredible technological disruption, and open access is part of that. And the most successful publishers going forward, I think, anyway, are the ones who will not only be producing great content, but who will be able to adapt to this new reality.
Yeah, you can. Where's the mic? Yes.
Lara, are you obligated by law, I assume you are because you live in Canada, to publish whatever you publish in French and English at the same time?
Excellent question. We are not. We are not, and I don't publish every single book in both languages. That would totally be unfeasible. We publish in the language in which we receive the manuscript, and every once in a while we will publish a book simultaneously in both languages.
Because my next question would have been, does that give you an edge when it comes to marketing or international reach? But since you don't...
But I do have a strategic advantage to being a bilingual press and to be able to work in both the French market and the English market in terms of marketing and sales, and just getting to know our colleagues in in the American presses or in the French presses, what they are doing, and then to adapt our practices to everyone's best practices, to kind of know what's coming as well, the trends. So to me, it is definitely additional work because we translate all of our marketing materials. We do a lot of that translation work. But at the same time, if we're able to leverage that and use it to our advantage to grow and to reach out to a broader international audience, I think it's definitely worthwhile.
Juan, do you also want to comment on the last point, or shall we open the discussion already? What do you prefer? Good. That is a clear answer.
Yo creo que sí, yo creo que, a ver, hay que identificar cosas. Por ejemplo, en el caso de la Universidad del Rosario, desde hace, y varias universidades de Colombia, estamos en JSTOR Books. O sea, eso, tenemos un contrato de contenidos de ebooks con ellos. Los resultados son magníficos. Realmente, cuando suscribimos ese convenio con ellos, era más como para explorar, a ver qué pasaba. Los resultados en diciembre de 2017, yo dije, ¿qué pasó? O sea, es muy buen resultado, además porque el movimiento de estos contenidos a través de JSTOR, en su gran mayoría son en bibliotecas en el mundo anglosajón y son libros en español. Entonces, y son libros, no revistas. Entonces, cuando uno dice esto, bueno, aquí hay un camino que recorrer, hay una cosa que sumar. Uno debe sumar. En el mundo de la edición, para divulgar hay que sumar, para poder establecer relaciones y redes con otros. Pero estos libros son contenidos de venta. Esto no es acceso abierto. Esto está para que la gente compre el contenido. Si estuviese un texto de abierto en la plataforma JSTOR, pues no se cobraría, no hay problema, pero estos son contenidos por ahora solamente para venta. Entonces no es abierto y gratuito lo que tenemos. Lo abierto y gratuito está en el canal del repositorio institucional, está en la editorial del Rosario y en algunas bibliotecas, como el caso La Más Plant en Alemania, que nos ha pedido 3 títulos de los que tenemos como abierto y les hemos dado los enlaces porque hay una comunidad de investigadores interesados en temas de Colombia, en particular sobre la paz y el conflicto, y está en plena discusión. Entonces, son los canales que uno tiene que interpretar, analizar, capacitarse para poder sumar. Porque si no sumo, le estaría quitando la posibilidad a potenciales investigadores, a potenciales lectores, de que conozcan eso que estamos editando al interior de la Universidad del Rosario. Yo creo que sí hay que añadir a todo lo que estamos haciendo para poder difundir, para circular, porque el editor se acomoda, universitario, lo digo por conocimiento de tiempo, se acomoda hasta el objeto, hasta la producción editorial. Es trabajo del editor ocuparse de lo que sigue, de la comunidad lectora. Es parte de su oficio.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks to the 3 of you. I'm really glad that we share, even though we come from different points in the conversation, that we share the view that more collaboration and less kind of competition in the field is really helpful. And I'm really looking forward to discussions that we have been starting in a different context now about how to better include what we call the Global South into the research exchange around open access. And if that means to deposit more content with repositories, for example, also English or French or German or whatever language content, I think that is that's probably an interesting way forward, and I think we should continue the conversation here. Now, are you planning to do something, Marie-Fé?
Ahora 30 minutos de coffee break para después seguir en el taller sobre acceso abierto aquí en esta misma sala, donde se pueden profundizar estas preguntas y otros aspectos que presentarán Sven y Philip Hess, y que paralelamente habrá otro taller a partir de las 12:30, 1:45, abajo en la sala taller número 2. Allí se trata de transformación, publicación y difusión de ebooks a cargo de Inkit, de la empresa mexicana Inkit.
Thank you very much. And if there are urgent points to discuss, it is also okay, I think, to start the workshop time with another like 5 or 10 minutes because then we don't cut you out of the conversation now, which would be a pity. Thanks a lot and enjoy the coffee break. And thanks to you. Yes.